Narada Bhakti Sutra, text 58. Anyasmat saulabhyam bhaktau. Then all else is the ease in devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 1, Text 10. Prayanam payusha sabya kalav asmin yuge janah mandah sumanda matayo manda bhagya he upadruta. Learned individual. In the Iron Age of stress, people have short lives. They quarrel, they're lazy, they're misguided, unfortunate, and always disturbed. So, in the middle of things, it's made easier by the fact that you apply that devotional consciousness to it. And easier than getting other types of success, again, is the being devoted to deity. Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 3, Verse 51. Kaler dosha nidevrajan astehe eko mahan guna kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param vrajet. The age of tension is full of the faulty. There remains a good quality, that by chanting for the God of light, one can become free from material bondage and promoted to transcendence. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 7, Verse 14. Daevi he asha gunamayi mamamaya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantate. The angelic energy contains the modes that people have illusions about, and that which people have illusions about is difficult to overcome. But those who attain to the submission, Islam is a Arabic term that translates as that and is in the same context, can easily go beyond it. Text 59. Pramanantarasya pekshatvat svayam pramanatvat. The means of knowing another because of not being independent in his own right makes him a valid authority. So devotion in itself is, of course, spiritual authority. And the Quran has a verse that mentions the way of the believer. So if all the believers are agreed on something, it's different. But just because you hear that some Sahaba or some scholars at one point in time seem to have agreed on something doesn't mean that's the case. Like the founding of the Sunnis, you have a list of, 50 things that 90 people agreed on in a place of tens of thousands of people? Maybe more would have heard about it. So one needs to be careful about the claims of, well, all the devotees agree that this is how we go about this situation. And perhaps in their town it was for some stuff, but not for everything, everywhere, right? Well, actually, that was more of a list of doctrines for everywhere, but you know what I mean. Chapter 7, verse 25 of the Bhagavad Gita. Naham prakasa sarvasya yuga maya samavritta buddhoyam na bijannate luko mamajam avyayam. I'm never made known to the foolish and stupid. For them, there's the covering of the internal potency. And for that reason, they don't know that I'm unborn and infallible. Because people look at the sent ones and they say, oh, well, they have human limitations. Well, the sent ones are picked to be perfect examples and stuff like that. But, people look at that and say, oh, you're just another human and all that. And it's like, well, okay, I don't speak my own doctrine, and if I was, prove it. All of you group together, do something like that. If you think about some of these things, you think of, wait a second, that's beyond what anybody ever did in here, or as far as the consistency of prophecy being valid or something, right? Text 60. Sante rupat Paramananda Rupachcha. A peace, because the form is the utmost, a pleasure, and because of also about this form. And so rather than sorrow and suffering, devotional service takes us somewhere else. Like a lot of people, it's so, if you spent your life watching it, it's like, yeah, but then that dulls the rest of life, and then you get disappointed if you don't reach a certain level of excitement or whatever you're looking for, and you can enjoy the good things in life, but And so Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 25. Bhoktaram yajnata pasam sarva luka mahesvaram suhadam sarva bhutanam jnatvamam santim rachate. One in full consciousness knows me as the ultimate recipient, so God's the ultimate inheritor of the sacrifices and austerities, the supreme over all worlds and entities, the benefactor and the well-wisher of the living. They attain peace in the middle of material problems. Text 61. Lukana uchintana karya nivedit atma luka vedatvat. Of the world, about loss and worry, that shouldn't be done because of the surrender of one's own and the mundane affairs and the scriptural duties. So both that which is explicitly listed as, hey, this is your religious duty, and stuff that would generally be considered secular, once you give this up to divinity, that this is all for divinity, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're going to work, whatever, then, drop off the worry about other losses, because you've succeeded in this life spiritually. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Verse 17. Tyaktva svadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajan apakvo vapatat tato yade yatrakava vabhadram abud amushyakim kuvartha aptu bhajatam svadharmata. Who has forsaken this world's business to engage in devotion may sometimes make mistakes in immaturity, yet there's no danger of being unsuccessful. On the other hand, non-devotees engaged in their business don't gain anything spiritually. It's like, even if you're doing humanitarian work, if you don't have spiritual intentions, your reward is this world, basically. Oh, maybe, but, you've basically given up the main point of what you're doing. You could do it all. You can make your whole life about humanitarian work, but without any spiritual connection, you've virtually lost the reward you're getting. Even if you leave your name off of buildings, or whatever the thing is, right? Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 5, Verse 41. Devarshe bhutapta nurnam pitranam nakinkaro nayam ranicha rajan sarvatmana yah saranam saranyam gato mukundam parehartya kartam. Anyone's taken shelter with the giver of liberation, giving up other obligation, taking to a serious path that doesn't owe anything about duties or obligations to the light beings, the sages, the general living entities, the family members, humanity, or forefathers. Now, when you live the spiritual path, of course, you do your other duty, your actual duty, but some people kind of mistake all that. Like, some people try to turn their children into servants, and you're not supposed to do that ever, particularly when they've gotten older. And if there's not a need, people are like, I'd rather do this, but when you get old, you have the right for nobody to wait on you. When it comes to, you want some TV, or you want something like this, or you don't want to do it yourself, so you'd rather have someone else do it. No, if you can do it yourself, it's not a duty on anybody else to do it for you. Maraba, Rakaba, Yo Itcha, Tohara, Nityadasa, Prate, Tuwa, Adekara, Bhakti, Vinoda, Thakura said, if you want to kill me, or if you want to give me protection, whatever you want, you can do it. I'm at your service. You have the right to deal with me according to your choice? Well, that's something in context to say to people, but Text 62. Na tat siddhau luka vyavaharo haya kintu pala tyagastat sadhanam cha karyameva. Not of it in the achievement in the world's business to be abandoned, rather of the results, the abandonment of it, and it must be done indeed. So you've got to give up on this idea of living in this world so the world's going to pay you back. Now, certainly you uphold your rights as an employee or renter or whatever the case is. Text 63. Sridhanana stika charitram nasravaniyam. Of women, wealth. The atheists' stories should not be listened to. Okay, so if you're turning to merely any of these things, no. And mere entertainment in itself, that should be stepped away from. So, tax skills necessary to survive and thrive, yeah, listen to that stuff. And you can listen to people of the same gender for that. And, lifestyles of the rich and famous and stuff, that's just going to make you want their wealth more than you already do. And people without a spiritual connection, Alexander Dugin is definitely right about that, that's the main problem. The main problem is these people have no spiritual life. They have no spiritual life. They don't care about other people. Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 25, Verse 25. Satam prasangan mama virya samvedo bhavante hartkarna rasayana katha tajjoshanad asav apavarga vartmane sraddha ratir bhaktir anukrameshyate. The spiritually powerful can be properly discussed among devotees. It's pleasing to hear in that association. Certainly not among people who are going to make fun of religion and throw doubts and make false theories, because a lot of people claim that there's some theory that disproves religion, and it's like, well, some things claimed about religion maybe, but then again, that's not the point, to just go around and pick up a spiritual book and look at what you're going to disprove. I thought reading the Quran, for example, and stuff, I was going to find something, and I was going to be able to point it out to Muslims that, hey, your religion is wrong, and it's not just my tastes, my personal desires or preferences or mere opinions, although I didn't run into that problem. But I thought that's what I could do, just as I've found stuff with every other path. Text 64. Abhimanadammadekam tyajyam. Pride, deceit, and so on should be given up. So, the false egos. It's not that you don't build up your ego. You definitely build up your ego, but not your false one, But as the comment to the previous verse, it's not about what you can do, and there's a certain approach to things, whether you agree with them or not. You certainly want to still encourage people towards good and truth and away from evil and ignorance, as it would be called. Even if you don't agree with some aspects of their theology. our actions or whatever. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 1, Verse 15. Kachit kavalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayana agam dunvante kartsnyana niharam iva bhaskara. Only rarely has a person taken on complete, unadulterated service to the compiler of the angelic. And this uproots the weeds of the sins without possibility of revival. He can do this by carrying out their devotional duty, just as the sun breaks up the fog right away by its rays. And as a devotee, we should think, Avasya Rakshibe Krishna. There's a certainty that our protection and ability to do things will come from the God of Light. Text 65. Tadarpita kilachara sankama krudabhimanadikam tasmin eva karandiyam. To him is the offering of all actions, being, desire, anger, pride, and so on. Towards him only should this be done. So certainly our spiritual path can be beneficial to other beings. It can be part of our relationship with other beings, whether we're mentioning religion explicitly as part of that. But the purpose is because this is devotion, this is dedicated to God. Text 66. Tre rupa banga purvakam nitya dasya nitya kanta bhajanatmakam prema karyam prema eva karyam. The three material forms are broken in the proceeding of constant devotional service that's perpetual. As a lover, the service consists of pure love. One should manifest that pure love, and only that you should manifest. So you break through the mere goodness, passion, and ignorance to go on to something else where, those modes are still going to occur, but, you've broken through that platform. Text 67. Bhakta akantino mukhya. Devotees are the exclusive principle. The Isopanishad invocation has Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam. We say yes to the transcendent as perfect and complete. Tat Tvam Ase. You are that. The ultimate that. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 41. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekaha kuru nandana bahu sakahe anantascha buddhayo vyavasayanam. To be on this path is to be together in purpose, and their aim is singular. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intellect of those who are irresolute, the intellect of the irresolute is many-branched. You know, the don't serve God and mammon principle, a little bit more understandable here. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, Verse 2. Srotavyadine Rajendra Narnam Sante Sahasrasa Apasyatam Atma Tattvam Garhashu Grha Medinam. The persons that are engrossed, being blinded to the knowledge of the ultimate, have many subjects that they hear, O Emperor. Now, having a variety of knowledge is fine, but not for variety. Just like other things, it's not, when you make things about, oh, we're going to have a big old variety here, yeah, that's the problem. You need to stop. Same thing with coupling, you know, it's just to have variety. No, you want something more than just variety. You should. Text 68. Kanvava ruda romasrube parasparam lapamana pavayante kulane pratevimcha. The throat's blocked with bodily hair, with tears among each other, conversing. They purify their community and then the earth. So there's some effort going into things. There's some emotion. There's some feeling. It's not just your own liberation and you chant until you form some sort of non-drug high, which can happen. But there's this concern for the rest of existence. Text 69. Tirthi kurvante tirthane sukarmi kurvante karmane satchastri purvante sastrane. Into holy places, they make holy places. Into auspiciousness, they make auspiciousness. Purity, into scripture, they make the scriptures. So see, it's not the forms, it's the fact that the forms are used. You don't point at some prayer flag on the wall and never read it. You have to have that reference. Other than, the Chaitanya Bhagavata says, Prativit e achayata nagarade grama sarvatra prachara haebe mura nama. And what I mean previously was the whole amulet and charm thing, or vicarious reliance. You do the deeds, you do the meditations, you do the reading, etc., etc. So you can have the perfect books and all that other stuff. And also don't make it an empty thing where you're just going through it like it's art. But this thing I just chanted is that in every habitation. Big and small, my name will be preached. Text 70. Tat Maya. And so they're filled with him. God is in me and I'm in God, but, I'm not God. God's not limited by space, so smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest, around everything in between at the same time, as it may be said. Text 71. Modante Pitaro Nirtyante Devata Sanatha Chayam Bur Bhavate. They become joyful, the forefathers, and they dance with the light beings, having good masters, and this earth so becomes. So, as people do their duty, people who aren't even of the path, or just know that it existed, knows that as far as these individuals, our rights are protected. Much like, the Islamic doctrines on war. If people knew what they were, and that this was what people were trying to spread, that, everybody's place of worship, every religious community, these people only fight in self-defense, that sort of thing. That's what they're trying to spread. People would be like, they'd feel safer rather than listening to the TV, And there's examples with many other faiths that people, if they just knew, like people were upset and worried about the International Society of Christian Consciousness for a while, stuff on TV, and it's like, brainwashing, kidnapping people because they've changed religions or become religious. That's just not right. Text 72. Naste tashu jate vidya rupa kula dana krayade beda. There is not in them a class of education, beauty, family, wealth, occupation, and so on as a difference. Now, worldly existences do happen, but just like a pilgrim at Mecca, that point is lost. You're on the same path, you're doing the same thing even, so, it's not for, to be there and think, this person's a famous scholar, or this person's rich and famous in some other way, or maybe they're not rich, but they're, they're particularly beautiful or handsome or whatever, or whatever the case is. It's like that's all dropped in all this. Text 73. Yatastadiya. Because it's his. So they acknowledge everything is divinity's. And whatever their position, it's for their particular duties, and the particular duties of those who are going to react to it, etc., etc. The Padma Purana says, Aradananam sarvesham Vishnur Aradanam param tasmat parataram deve tadiyanam samarchanam. All types of worship. Out of them, to worship the all-pervading is best and better than the worship is of. A better service is to serve the devotee. Because doing what's good for the spiritual path and the individuals on the spiritual path can be a higher state of that. You don't have to treat them as a deity. The word worship in English has some different meanings that, The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, Verse 29, Samoham sarva bhutashu namedavashyo stena preya yabhajante tumam bhaktya mayete tashu chape aham. I'm not envying, I'm not partial, I'm as equal to all, but whoever renders service to me in devotion is a friend. In me, I'm a friend to him. So deity isn't favoring people ultimately by making them rich or poor or whatever. But how we turn to deity, well, deity turns right back. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 18. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmanne gabe hastenne sune cha eva svapake cha pandita samma darsana. The sages, with their virtue of knowledge, have equitable vision, maybe that's a better way to say, equitable to all, or treat others with equality, because they're learned and gentle. A cow, an elephant, a dog, and those who eat dogs. Well, if you're an outcast, what choice do you have with some of these things, right? You know, people don't give you good food. You have to eat what you eat. But it's important to realize if you have to eat it or not.